Hey Woodies, Woodpops here. How you doing today? In this episode of Expressions in Wood, I'm going to be wood turning a pepper grinder from a Bunya Bunya tree. Yep, wood turning a pepper grinder from a Bunya Bunya tree. The Bunya Bunya tree comes from Australia. It was brought over to this country about 100 years ago as a sapling. It was planted in Gotha, Florida. Hurricane Irma blew it down, and I got several pieces of the Bunya Bunya tree. So today we're going to be wood turning a pepper grinder from a Bunya Bunya tree. So stick around, watch the whole episode. At the end, I'm going to tell you a little story about the Bunya Bunya tree. You want to be sure and stick around and hear that story. If you haven't subscribed, please do so now. Ring the little bell so you'll be notified. Like and share my video. All right, let's go. Wood turning the pepper grinder from a Bunya Bunya tree. We're going to lay out our pepper grinder because we're wood turning a pepper grinder out of a Bunya Bunya tree. And I want this knot right here to kind of be in the center. So I'm going to put my top right here. The top of my pepper grinder is going to be up here. The bottom's going to be down here, so this knot is prominently in the body of the pepper grinder because that knot's going to be a beautiful piece. Okay, what I've done here, this is my top. I'm going to mark it top. This is going to be the bottom of the top right here. And this part right here is the tenon, the spigot, that goes down inside the body. And it has to be a 1/2 inch. So we're going to part this off right here. But the first thing we have to do before we go, once we've got this laid out now, is we have to put a tenon down here on this end so that we can chuck up the body, okay? So that when we're wood turning a pepper grinder from a bunya bunya, we can do it from both directions. So now we have our spigot, our tenon on the bottom, and we're going to mark this bottom. Draw a line so I can match them up. Here's where I'm going to part it. I've got my bottom marked, got my top marked. I'm ready to part this off. I've got a spigot on each end so I can mount it. I'm ready to go. Okay, we've got our top and bottom parted. Now we're going to do our drilling. We're going to drill a 1/4 inch hole through the top of our pepper grinder. Okay, at this point, what we're doing down here is we're cutting our spigot that's going to go down inside the body of the pepper grinder. And the hole that we're going to drill all the way through the pepper grinder body, just through the body, we're going to drill a 1 1/16 inch hole all the way through. So this spigot has to fit in that 1 1/16 inch hole, and it needs to move because we want the head to be able to go back and forth as we grind the pepper. So it's got to be pretty close but not snug. Okay, so this has to be able to fit in a 1 1/16 inch hole. This is 1 1/16 right here. So that's how big we want our spigot to be. I want this part of the head right here to be slightly concave, okay? I'm going to leave a little wiggle room out here for fitting. So this is my top right here, right now. And I'll shape this together with the body. So I'm going to take this off and we're going to work on the body. Now obviously I can't drill all the way through because this bit's not long enough. So we're going to drill a little over 3/4 and then we'll drill the other side when we reverse it. We're going to drill the bottom a 1/2 inch deep with a 1 5/8 inch Forstner bit. That's this one right here. This one right here. You want to go gently doing this, okay? Because the only thing holding your body on right here is a tight fit right here, so go easy. This one right here. Just a 1/2 inch deep. This is for the mechanism in the bottom of our pepper grinder to hold it in. You want to go gently doing this, okay? Because the only thing holding your body on right here is a tight fit right here, so go easy. Okay, you can see my shape from my pepper grinder is all laid out here. That knot is going to be nice right there in the center, how I've got that in the top third of the bottom, pleasing to the eye. A couple of nice coves down here, a couple of nice beads. Now, obviously I've got a little work to do on this body because this Bunya Bunya tree blew down in Hurricane Irma in 2017. And so as I've turned this piece of wood, and I've gotten 2 truckloads of it, I've noticed there's a lot of shakes throughout the tree. So you have to deal with those. But, you know, I tell the people who buy it, it's part of the story. The hurricane, tremendous forces of the wind caused internal shakes. So if you don't know what a shake is a crack that's caused by extreme force, which you would consider a hurricane as extreme force. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my method of filling cracks and voids. And if you haven't seen that video, look up there in the right-hand corner at the top in that little eye. You can watch that video, how to fill cracks and voids with super glue, Starbond to be exact. And I'm going to fill these little cracks, these little wormholes. I'm probably going to leave those because that's character. And there's some standard drying cracks, real small ones I'm going to work at down here in the bottom. But that's all part of the character of this piece. Okay, so off camera, I'm going to fill these cracks and little voids, and I'm going to sand it. And when I come back, we're going to cut the head off. So I've got a jam chuck here that I made. I've got my head. Put it right in there. Bring my tailstock up. You see that right there in the upper right hand corner. I'm going to jam it right in there. Finish sanding it and polish it, and then we'll assemble it. As you can see, our pepper grinder is all turned and it's ready to assemble. You can see the parts laid out on the table here in front of me. This is what the kit looks like right here when I buy them. I buy the ones with the long 12-inch bar, and that way I can cut it down to whatever size happens to match the piece of wood that I want to use. So I always buy them longer than I think I'm going to need them. But what you have to do is you have to cut your rod down. As you can see, here, it's way too long. So I'm going to have to go over to the bench and cut part of it off. once I do that, it's going to look like this right here. This one was cut off. When I cut them off, you have to mash the end in a little bit so that it won't come through your parts. Screw it all the way up tight. Just needs to flare a little. And just to be on the safe side, I put a little tiny bit of medium thick star bond on the end of it. Also, let that dry good, and it holds it in your parts. So we're going to assemble this thing now, and it's pretty simple. Okay, here are my pieces. My rod is now cut. The end has been flattened, as you can see right there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this into the bottom of the crusher. And you can see that's snug. The next thing, okay, make sure you get it in right. It sits in flush. Okay. Then the next thing is the spring with the large end going down, just like that. And then the clip with the feet going down. And you can see it clips into the side of the crusher, just like that. And the little clips go around your mechanism like that. Okay? And then the whole thing goes in toward the bottom just like this. And it fits right in the bottom, snaps in nice and flush. And fit this snug in the end, just like that. Okay. Now you need to mark and drill 2 little holes for your screws to fasten this to the bottom. Your retainer clip goes on top like this. So your screws will go through the retainer clip just like that. You're going to drill 2 holes right there and put your little screws in there, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Need my glasses to see what I'm doing here. Oh, by the way, you've probably noticed me wearing these before. These are my banjolitos. These were made by a friend of mine here in Orlando. They have just plain readers in them, and he cut the wood out on the laser, and he's got a patent on them, and he was kind enough to give me these. Banjolitos, made out of wood, really cool. Be careful not to strip the screws out. There's not a lot of wood in there, so you don't want to drive them in and then manpower them. You want them just snug, just like that, so that this spring activates just like that. Okay? And my rod is sticking out just like that. The bottom is all nice and flush. The mechanism pulls in and out. You want that so that it moves. That's how you adjust your grind from fine to coarse on your pepper grinder. It's got to be able to come in and out like that. So now we're going to put the little metal plate, goes on here just like this. Again, we're going to drill starter holes and then holes, and we're going to Then we take our ball head, slip it through, screw on the little knob. This is how you adjust the coarseness of your grind. If you want it fine, you screw it all the way in. Makes a fine grind. If you want it coarse, you unscrew it. And that's how it works. And we're all done. For those of you who stuck around till the end of the video, I appreciate it. Thanks. So you ask, what is Bunya Bunya tree? Well, I'm going to read you a little bit here about what Wikipedia has to say about it. And then I'm going to tell you the story of how the Bunya Bunya came into my possession. The Bunya Bunya is found naturally in southeast Queensland, Australia, and they used to be dinosaur food millions of years ago. Bunya pines have been on this earth for that long. The trees can grow up to 150 feet high and live for almost 600 years. The pine cones that fall each year can weigh up to 40 pounds apiece. 40 pounds. And contain bunya nuts, large edible seeds that have held both cultural and culinary significance for the Aboriginal Australians for thousands of years. The Aborigines' fierce protection of the trees and recognition of the value of the timber led to the colonial authorities prohibiting settlers from cutting the trees in 1842. The bunya was extremely important to the native Aborigines within its range, and they considered it a sacred tree. About every 3 years between January and March, Aboriginals used to gather for tribal ceremonies, hunting, and fishing ceremonies. Among the Aborigines, the tree is hereditary property protected by law. Since the mid-1990s, the Australian company Maton has used the bunya for the soundboards of their performer acoustic guitars. The Cole Clark Company, also Australian, uses bunya for the majority of its acoustic guitar soundboards. So the Bunya Bunya tree plays a big role in Australia. How did I come to have some Bunya Bunya tree? Well, a little over 100 years ago, a couple immigrated from Queensland, Australia to the United States, and they brought with them a sapling Bunya Bunya tree. and they planted it on their property near Gotha, Florida. Well, that property ended up in Mr. Nehrling's hands. He was a horticulturist, and he had gardens around his house, which eventually came to be known as Nehrling Gardens, which had the Bunya Bunya tree growing on it. Well, Nehrling Gardens has an Amaryllis Festival every Christmas time, and 3 years ago, I was invited to participate in their annual Christmas show. That was the year that Hurricane Irma blew through Central Florida in late fall. And Hurricane Irma blew down that Bunya Bunya tree at Nehrling Gardens. So when I went and participated in their December Amaryllis Festival, it was stacked up in a big pile, and they offered it to me. So what did I do? I came back the next day after the show, and I loaded up my pickup truck with Bunya Bunya. And for 3 years, I've been making things out of the Bunya Bunya, including the pepper grinder, which is this video. I also made toothpick holders, which is another video. I've done many bowls out of the Bunya Bunya. Vases, bowls, toothpick holders, pepper grinders. I've been using that Bunya Bunya for 3 years. I think I'm down to my last 2 or 3 pieces. I'll be sorry to see it go. It has beautiful color. It has red streaks through it and prominent, which really makes it beautiful, in my opinion, are the knots. The knots that are throughout the tree. So the Bunya Bunya has truly been a great wood for me to turn over the past 3 years, and I'm going to miss it. And that's the story of Woodpops' Bunya Bunya tree. Well, that finishes this episode on pepper grinders. Hope you learned something. Hope you had as much fun as I did. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd like for you to do so. It'd be great. Click the like button, share it with your friends, and don't forget to hit the bell so you'll be notified. This is Woodpops signing off, saying a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. All right.